Thank the Lord for so much coming back once again. Oh, feeling so good today. Giving a great shout out to the YouTube family from Papa JT all the way down to baby Justice. We still praying for you and we thank the Lord for working on baby brother and he's coming on, y'all. God bless. I want to come back and respond to my boy. I hope I'm saying his name right. Rakim61. And thank you, man. I love when people study the word of God, but I'm looking at the email you sent me, and you asked me to do this video about disciples, apostles, and prophets. And how do I believe in that? And I think I did a video about prophets a long time ago, but I just, say it again in this video. First of all, this is why we got so much confusion because of titles. Now, your first question was, do I believe in somebody calling themselves an apostle? No, I don't. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Jesus appointed apostles. But if you want to call yourself anything you want to call yourself, knock yourself out. Because I keep telling people, God is not a respected person. He don't care nothing about all these titles, man. And you got people call themselves prophets, bishops, elders, evangelists, so on and so on. But do I agree with people calling themselves apostles now? First of all, let's look at what an apostle is. See, it's a difference between an apostle and a disciple. And I know a lot of people ain't going to agree with me when I say this because a lot of folks won't do the real studying, but an apostle is appointed. That's an ambassador of the gospel, basically a teacher. See, like Paul was. See, Paul wasn't a disciple. Paul was an apostle. That's why they called him Apostle Paul. If I'm saying it correctly, I don't think Paul was a disciple because Paul was a teacher. And Paul taught well. So a disciple is a student, a follower. We can actually say that Timothy was kind of like a student, a devoted student, because Paul was teaching young Timothy, and Timothy was young. So when you are a disciple, you are following. So when you look up apostle in Greek, I believe it means messenger. So a disciple learned how to be a teacher. And Jesus appointed those apostles. That's why there is a difference. Now, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why there is a difference. Because, see, many are called, but only a few was chose. That's why I said that in the other video. Many are called, and only a few are chose. So, disciple in the Greek means follower. So when you look at disciple, you look at a follower, a student, And then when you look at an apostle, that's a teacher. See, they teach like Paul did. And I hope that makes sense to you. Like I say, I'm not trying to confuse you, but just to give you a little insight on this. And these are good questions because when I first started coming in the Word of God, I started having those same questions like that. But the more you study, see, back in the early church, an apostle was a Christian church leader. See, charged by Jesus. That's why that's why I don't agree with people calling themselves, I'm an apostle this. I know this guy changed his name every 3 or 4 months. He's bishop one minute, then he's apostle the next. 2 months later, he might call himself evangelist. He's caught up in titles. He loves titles. So that's why I say apostle in the Greek means a messenger who sent forth with orders. That's why God instructed Paul just as Paul instructed Timothy. That's why I call Timothy Paul's young protege. So just wanted to just throw that out there to you. So let's look at your other question about the prophets. Do I agree with people calling themselves prophets? I'm going to say this. You can call yourself what you want to call yourself. I'm not caught up in it. I'm going to say that again. I'm not caught up in it because when you look at Mark, I want to say Mark chapter 13, when Jesus was telling those disciples, when they was asking those questions, and we know the Gospels, they have a different way of explaining things, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all had their own version, but like I was saying, when you look at Jesus told them, I have foretold you all things. He didn't say some things, so you ask me, is there really a need for a prophet? And it's just me talking now off of my opinion. No. That's why I don't agree with a lot of prophets and I'm not saying there ain't no prophets around. Now don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. There are prophets around, But like Papa JT always say, God put the word in your heart. Because when Jesus came, in so many words, he was saying, there really ain't no need to go through a whole lot of prophets no more. My son is here. Now that my son is here, you can go directly through my son. That's why he say to get to him, you got to get to my father, you must come through me. See, people don't catch that though. We done got so caught up in I need to be called prophet. I need to be. Do I have the gift of prophesizing now, man? So I hope I'm making this clear to you in this video. See, I'm going to say this. When he said that in Mark 13, he says, I have told you all things, these things must take place. He was telling the disciples, and Jesus taught them well. And when he said that, well, how was the word sent? Well, you look at it. God sent the word through the prophets, and what he didn't tell the prophets, he told the apostles. That's how I look at that. He told the apostles. Now, when you look at it like that, that's why the apostles was teachers. And then the disciples was followers. That's what I call myself, a disciple. In so many words. You know what? I just want to be a servant. I want to be a disciple, a follower of Christ. Because only Christ chose apostles. That's why I would never call myself an apostle, man. So you can say Apostle Paul. They was there. They was picked by the Lord. That's why the Lord said that Paul is my chosen vessel. See, that's why I've been speaking about this a lot now. Because when he converted Saul to Paul, I'm talking about the same person. When Paul became Paul and never went back to the way he was as a persecutor, he had that same zeal. It was just for the Lord then, because he was against the Christians. He hated Christians, but once he learned what he was doing was wrong, when God had to knock him down and get him right, he never went back to being there. That's why he said, this is my chosen vessel. He said, chosen vessel. See, Paul was chose. So that's why I like to look at Paul and Timothy, because Paul taught Timothy. Timothy was Paul's student. So to me, that's the difference between an apostle and a disciple. Apostles was appointed. They was handpicked. But you're going to have an argument that they're the same, and I'm not here to argue. You know, you believe what you want to believe. But you're going to have people say they're the same. You know, apostles and disciples are the same. But I don't look at it as it's the same in so many ways, because, like I say, I use Paul for a great example. I don't consider Paul a disciple. I consider Paul a teacher, an apostle who was appointed. And ain't now one of us living right now has been appointed as an apostle. Now, I'm just being real when I say that. There was 12 apostles, and my name wasn't in that. I wasn't even there. You wasn't even there. So people going to knock themselves out calling themselves titles all day long. That's why a pastor, people need to learn that a pastor is nothing other than a servant. When Jesus walked the earth, he only considered himself a servant. That's why he told them, don't call no man good but the Father. He didn't want to be elevated no higher than God. Oh man, Jesus always humbled himself before the Father. So when you look at this whole thing about prophecy, I'm not caught up in it. See, this is why I don't have, let me say this right, this is why I make a prophet get off and around me. With all this, I call it prophet lying nowadays. People speaking stuff, and you better be careful what people saying to you, and you better be careful who laying their hands on you, and that's a whole other video by itself. When people laying their hands on you, better go back and look about how folks was when they was unclean. How you had to be. See, I'm trying not to go into that. I think I did a video about that, but if you walking around here laying hands on people and you living a life of sin, and oh man, you ain't repenting, and all that stuff you doing, you laying hands on people, you better be careful with doing that. And I mean that in a good way, man. You better be careful with this laying hands on people. And Paul, once again, is speaking in tongues. See, Paul was very smart. Paul spoke, what, three or four different languages, if I'm not mistaken. Paul was very smart, and that's why people don't catch a lot of things, because the New Testament is Greek. You know, the Old Testament, the Bible is rolled from King James especially. You got Greek, Hebrew, and Latin all tied in together. That's why these words, these translations are so off in a lot of these Bibles, because now we got so many Bibles out, you don't know what to believe. And I'm going to give a shout out to Mama Trina. She was just saying it in a comment. That's why I was going to come back and do another video with the King James version on when I was talking about you better get up off of Israel. When you know, when you look at Russia, When you look at Iran, see, I'm trying, let me get out of all that. Let me stick to this video. There's a difference between a disciple and an apostle. I mean, you can agree with me or not. Hey, ain't gonna make me lose no 1 week. I'll sleep on people agreeing with me or not. I'm just saying what the word say. An apostle is an ambassador of the gospel, a teacher of the gospel, like Paul was. Disciple, well, hey, and we know who the 12 disciples were. That's why when you look at Paul's conversion, that was one to see Paul. Let me say this, I can talk about Paul all day because Paul wrote about 13 to 14 books in the New Testament. And the reason I say 14 because the author of Hebrews is unknown. And a lot of people might say that's Paul. That's why I say 13 to 14. But even out of that, man, that's a lot of books to write. And all those books he wrote, man, was powerful. And you look at him going to the churches. That's why I say Paul was an apostle. He followed Jesus well. But you got to look at it more than that. This man was a teacher, a great teacher. And why did God choose Paul? Because Paul knew how it was to be a great persecutor. See, God took Paul because Paul was a persecutor of the Christians, but he showed Paul what he was doing was wrong because Paul actually thought what he was doing was right. And that's why when he got converted, Paul went to work right away. And we need to be more like Paul. God bless you. God keep you.